Hi, I'm Deborah Neilson, author of We Had an Agreement, a memoir about the stories and survival patterns we inherit from our families, and what happens when one woman finally sees the pattern clearly enough to change what gets passed forward. The story begins with my mother, a cigarette hanging off her lip, the television still blaring, my mother staring straight ahead. I hope I'm dead by the time you publish that fucking book. 6 years later, she was dying in hospice. I went to see her a few months before then. As I was leaving, I told her I loved her. She looked at me and all the toughness went out of her face. Really? Her eyes filled with tears. That was the last thing my mother ever said to me face to face. 4 months later, on Mother's Day weekend, she was 1,500 miles away in hospice while I was in meditation. Suddenly, a wave of energy moved through my body. Every hair on my arm stood up. And then I heard my mother's voice, as clear as day. Deb, it was all supposed to happen. We had an agreement, you and me. Now my job is to help you turn all your pain into gifts, and we'll do it together. Minutes later, my phone filled with messages. She was gone. I grew up believing that if I could get far enough away from where I came from, I could become somebody else. At 13, I chose foster care rather than to go home to a father who had come after me with a crowbar. And years later, after repeated infidelity ended my marriage, I became a single mother to twins, determined to give my children the safety I had never known. I built a career, I moved through boardrooms, and I lived in beautiful homes. From the outside, my life looked nothing like the one I had escaped. But changing the scenery doesn't necessarily change the story, because we inherit more than eye color. We inherit stories, survival strategies, and silences. The invisible rules about love, safety, worth, and who we have to become in order to belong. I spent decades believing I was making independent choices before I began to wonder how many came unconsciously from a blueprint I didn't even know I'd inherited. And that left me with the question at the heart of this book. Can the meaning of what happened to us change, even when the facts never will? I have a 7-year-old granddaughter, and last summer we made a feelings chart together. There were red faces for anger and fear and jealousy, and green faces for calm, happy, and safe. In the middle of a tantrum one afternoon, Lena suddenly stopped, giggled, and said, "I'm in the red zone, Dima." She was 7, I was nearly 70. What had traveled through generations to me did not have to travel through me to her. I still don't know exactly what happened during that meditation or what my mother meant by an agreement between us, but after 6 years of telling me she hoped she'd be dead before I told our story, the last words I heard in her voice were, "Turn your pain into gifts. We'll do it together." Maybe this book is where we begin. We had an agreement.